Um, the kicking aspect of it, basically, we're in. Um, we went from Germany. We stopped in a place called Basel, which is on the border of
Switzerland. Yeah.
Switzerland and thing.
Yeah.
We spent a few days there, 3 4 days in Basel, and then we went up to um, Switzerland. And but back then there was Parker Shelton, Bob Bowles, Glenn Keeney, um, myself, Mel Wise, the top, I guess, cream of um, martial arts people, because there we did a lot of demonstrations in France and Germany and Scotland and in England, where I did seminars for the guys on sweeps and takedowns and locks and things. And some of the other guys did kata, and everybody had to contribute. But 1972, basically, the bottom line is the reason why we went over is, to me, I've always been pushing, and that's behind the scenes, helping out to not only the Chinese, the aspect of it, the Korean and the Okinawan Japanese, is I've always wanted to see the martial arts into the Olympics. And to me, when they said I turned professional, and I did turn professional, where I got paid $1 for fighting in one of the tournaments, and this is back in the '60s and '76. So, there goes your amateur status. You can't go to the Olympics now. That was the story that was given to me back then. We were staying at this place hotel, and one of the guys said something, and I said, no, that's not right. So anyways, we got into a thing. But you got to remember, Billy used to have good legs back in the '60s and '70s, but basically his thing was sidekick, or roundhouse kick every so often. There was a fellow by the name of Skipper Mullins, which turned out to be a real close friend. Skipper and myself. He 1968. He fought on the at the World Championships that was held at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City. And I fought on the same card against a fellow by the name of David Moon. Turned out to be a fantastic Taekwondo person, and opened up. I think he had 200 or 300 schools in Mexico. But anyways, getting back to Billy. So we got into this thing, and I said, I think I can kick higher. I can kick faster on this particular technique. And we're in a doorway. So anyways, so I went blip, and the rest of the guys were there. And then Billy, Billy had a hard time. And he said, what are you doing? What are you doing? I said, well, Billy, it's totally into stretching. And he said, what do you mean? So anyways, I said, okay, let me show you this. And I showed him an exercise. He still uses it while he teaches his seminars and his clinics. And I used to teach that in my clinics and my seminars. And then Billy and myself used to always cross paths, and on doing seminars, clinics. And I said, Billy, listen, I'm doing what I'm doing is because but you have an advantage over me. And he said, what's that? And I said, you're a major in body kinesiology. That's what he majored in. He was a phys ed teacher. I said, you're way ahead of me. I said, listen, I'm telling you to do the stretch this way. Why don't you tell the people what muscles, what works the flexors and the this and the hip joint, and explain it to them that way. You know that's where your forte is. But anyways, we the stretching back in Europe, so he would stretch every day. Well, it got to a point where and I'm and I think I know why. There's a history there. It's myself and one of the other guys. We locked him in a closet because it was getting. See, what would be happening is we would go to the restaurants and the bars. Well, while we were there, true story, is Billy would have his feet up on the bar, going through some of these stretching exercises. Well, we would get thrown out of the bars and these restaurants because of that, So that's a true story about the kicking, So
Yeah.
and
So
that
you and Bill Wallace, you had a bit of, was it the first time you had a match? You had an exhibition match just last year. And
no, Billy and myself.
rematch
I mean,
from
well, we used to compete all the time, and this is going back into the '60s and the '70s tournaments. Um, you got to understand that here, as a Canadian going down to the States, it was pretty tough. You know, is yes, I was very good at kata, so I competed in kata. Yes, I won a lot of kata competitions there, but um, Billy and myself, yeah, we competed quite a few times, same as Joe Lewis and same, I'm talking about karate tournaments. All right.
yeah, yeah.
Back then, what they called the blood and guts. Well, blood and guts to me, and it was in what they call it the traditional tournaments, call it the non-traditional, call it whatever you want. Um, Back then, the JKA style, what a punch. They would say, explain what a point is. Well, a point was this: you threw a punch, and if you did damage, if you stopped the person, you dropped the person to the body with control, you would win. Same as to the face. So, the blood and guts came into play where um, the guys that maybe didn't know how to do sparring that well used to run in crazy, and the guy would, try and throw a technique, but, so he would get caught and, you get hit and things. Billy and myself, there was an article and somebody, and I don't know about an article and I was talking to one of the people just last week that was at the tournament. Thank goodness that there's still some people that are still alive to talk about things like that. And that's the problem, is a lot of the old guys, they're gone. So, what's the truth? What isn't, but we fought one time in Kansas City, and it was the last fight for the eliminations. Now you got to remember, back in the '60s, is you would line up, and back then it wasn't two, three, four, five guys. It would be 20, 30, sometimes even more black belts. We would all line up, and there was no weight categories back then. It was, okay, you guys, you're over there to fight. You guys, you're over there to fight. And no weight categories. The katas came a little more in the latter part of the '70s. The 72, 73, 74. But '72 was when the katas really started coming into the tournament thing, because again, you had your JKA and you had your other people that's all they were fighting, that competition. They already knew who would win, but kata was a different story, So, but yeah,
weight classes for kata.
Yeah, yes. So, anyways, weight classes, but um, so that's how we used to fight back then, So that's what I guess they called the blood and guts period. Yeah, sometimes I'd have to fight against. I always was a middleweight, lightweight, middleweight. So my weight has always been 155 to 162. The uniform, yeah, it made me look big and everything else. I enjoyed that, but there's some nice pictures, and again, those are things that I'm going to send out to you and onto the internet, that people can see. Billy and myself, at different tournaments, we're playing pool, we're having a drink, but here I am refereeing, but I'm like this with street clothes on, skinny, then I've got my uniform on. So, yes, there's times where I did referee a guy like Joe Lewis and Vic Moore at one of the tournaments where Vic said something to Joe, and Joe said no, and then all of a sudden it started, and Joe just got married and he wouldn't take his wedding band off. That was the whole thing. So I was asked to do the main referee. Well, anyways, they started, and here's Joe. He's got poor Vic on the ground, and Vic was a tough, tough fighter, and they fought, and Vic did beat Joe at one time, and it was back and forth. But this turned a little, um, um, I shouldn't say ugly. It did turn a little ugly. So here's Joe going boom, boom, while Vic's on the, um, that was a raised platform, plywood, and all you can hear is boom, boom. But yeah, tournaments, Billy and myself, yeah, we did fight. In the magazine they said that he broke my nose and all that, and Billy and myself laugh about it. It's same as Lewis. They're saying that he knocked me out. I think, what's his name, Donnie, one of the guys phoned me from the US and said, Joe never knocked you out. How come this guy's telling everybody that he knocked you out? Joe and myself never had a bad and this is Lewis. We did do a demonstration, and I guess, if you want to call it, that was the very first kickboxing demonstration. That was 1970 here in Toronto. And basically what it was a demonstration that we put together. And yeah, there's film on it out on the internet and all sorts of different things. But when somebody says to me, and I heard about tournaments, competing against this guy, that guy. Well, back then there was a couple people from the JKA, NKA, whatever you want to call it, that were friends, and a lot of them I did compete against in tournaments. Dominic Pinto was one. Dominic Pinto was a great kata guy and a great kumite guy. Well, see, at that 1970 exhibition, and that's what it was a martial arts show. And Leo Ru, that was the original Oriental karate, and no, there was Oriental and one of the other ones before that. Again, I've got all that information, but they're the ones that put on this. They had the Taekwondo people, Korean people there doing breaking, and Chinese doing kata. And so I did a thing with that day, and they had Park doing the refereeing, just to highlight all the martial arts people. But Dominic and myself, we did a kumite match there, scoring and everything else. Great guy, we had fun, and that was a demonstration, the same as the other one. But I guess they tended to focus on one thing more so than the other, because right after that, the next week, we're in Ottawa. We're staying at John's place. And again, people didn't realize how, I guess, we sort of interacted to the rest of the guys back then. And I'm talking about everybody, Chuck and Joe and Skipper and all the real the martial arts people, even the Japanese guys. The tournaments, one thing. You get away from the tournaments, man, we'd go out and party. And did I get drunk? Absolutely. Like a lot of other people. And but we're staying at John's place, and
So John
Joe,
Tinian?
yes, and
John
Joe's
Tinian,
in the bathroom, and here I'm outside, and I got to go to the bathroom. I'm banging on the door, and I'm saying, Joe, will you stop with your makeup? Let's go. Let me in. And because he did a tournament at one side, I did a tournament at another side, and then we switched. And so back then it was, and I don't know where these stories come from, and
okay.
so the Canadian School of Health and Self-Defense. Yes, it did go through a lot of different stages and periods, and here's another one where I had the three schools going, and that's Tony Facchetti, a very good friend of mine. We with kids, we
Yep.
together, and there's a lot of stories that need to be cleared up about Tony as well. But that was the three schools, and Walt was involved in the Bloor and Keel School at that time. So, and this is all in the 70s. When it closed down, there was a lot of students that had to go someplace. And I had some really, really, really good students. And I'm talking about technique, kata, and could do what they were supposed to do: art, sport, reality, you know. So it's not, it was what was taught. Now, back in the 70s, there was people that were around, like Monty Guest. He left Soroka and he opened up his organization. Then there was Caesar that I believe he started in the 70s as well.
Cesar Bukowski, you mean?
Yes, yeah. And that's another thing is with tournaments, that's where the tournaments started changing. Um, yeah, Caesar was, so a lot of the students had to go someplace. So, um, guys like the other schools that maybe had 50, 100, 200 students, all of a sudden their schools, because the people had to go someplace, now they've got 500 students, and I'll tell you, I see some of them now, and they're, to me, it just, it really brings joy to my heart of what they've accomplished. And, yes, and I say thank you to a lot of these people to opening up their homes, and their schools to a lot of the students that, started at the Canadian School of Health and Self-Defense. Same as Walt. Now, Walt, really intelligent young man when he was here going to university, could do kata. As a matter of fact, when I say this, and I don't mean this in a negative way, I don't think there were guys like Billy or some of the other guys that would want to get into a sparring match with Walt back then. And that's the honest truth,
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
and I'm talking about reality now, because, and I've seen him in action, in many different things. But yeah, Walt, but in the sense that, yes, he could handle himself. When he went to Newfoundland, and again, there was, you got to understand, Walt went through different things that were taught. He went through the Chinese, he understood that. He went through the Okinawan, he understood that. He went through the Japanese and judo. So again, everything starts coming back to judo,
Yeah.
what they call jujitsu right now, that terminology, but it's all judo. So the tournament scene, and I understand what you're saying about the bars and, you working with him. So you're understanding what reality is and everything else. But getting back to the martial arts, it does give a lot of people certain things. Okay. It, a lot of people are looking for something, No, and again, the karate business, it's a interesting thing, and you want to know yourself personally about history. Is that the bottom line to this whole thing, or?
I have yeah, I'm a bit of a history nerd, and I'm interested in the martial arts, and I'm really curious as to what it was like, back in the, I was born in the 70s, so back in the 60s, I have no reference point, or for that matter.
Yeah.
So, I was curious about, because you hear all the stories, and you meet some people that are still doing the same things, as were done back then. And I'm curious to know, things like, what was the training like back then? How has your teaching evolved maybe from that, those kinds of questions, right? Is what I'm.
And you know what? Yeah. And I agree with whatever you've just said, because I see it all. I bite my tongue. I don't say too much, and I just, a lot of people have gone over to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
They find a total different story there. A lot of people have gone to Okinawa. Then they find a totally different story there. Then they go to China. So people are still searching, for I guess the truth about the martial arts. The whole thing to me is that, not the whole thing. There's a lot more to it, and maybe um, maybe we'll do this another time. I don't know. I'd like to talk with some other people
Sure. Yeah.
that are saying one thing, and I can say, well, just a minute, and here's the reason why, But if a person takes the martial arts right now, if it's a young person, all right, and if he learns how to focus, fantastic. If he learns discipline, fantastic. If he learns a lot of different things, that's fantastic. Same with another person coming in, and they can get rid of their frustration, their stress, their inhibitions. It's because when a person gets stressed out, they turn to different things. And I've seen it over the years where you get stressed and you get into alcohol, or you get into overeating, or you get different people have a different way of coping with certain things. But there's ways that you can eliminate that. I can tell you how, because there's a lot of things that I have been privy to, and this is going back to, let's go back to New York City, and even here, Toronto, in the 60s, all right, in the 50s. I was born with bronchial asthma. My asthma, have I been put on puffers? Yes. Have I used puffers? No. I mean, I have a couple times in extreme issues. Have I been hospitalized? Yes. Have I needed air? Yes. It's just, and for a perfect example, I fought in California in 1974, and I had a oxygen tank there with me. I had to. Um, but I needed it, but I didn't. And I'll tell you why. Because back in the early 50s, and when judo and all this started, not only here in Canada, US, and overseas, I had the privilege to learn, to teach, to exchange with a lot of people. A lot of people. Some people a little crazier than others, but to me, I always listened and I always learned and picked up. I used to have a couple of students like that were my my library, I used to call them. Walt used to be one of my library guys because I could show him something, he did remember it. There was Ken Talek in the early 60s, because the katas, um, with Pat McCarthy. I mean, Pat would look and I'd do something and he would mimic me. I mean, almost exact. And I used to say, hey, you got to remember that now. Um, he's one of the guys that sort of took my, I guess, things that I did back in the 60s. And I'm talking about going overseas, over to Europe, meaning a lot of the guys back then that really started a movement into the US. There was a fellow by the name of George Brutner and Mike Anderson back in the 60s in Germany. And when I went over to Europe, I lived in Spain. To me, that where my heart is, my soul. There's a lot of things in Spain. Um, I lived there. I bought property there. I built a house there. That's where I was going to stay. Now, from Spain, I went to over to the Canary Islands. From the Canary Islands, I went to Morocco. From Morocco, and I mean, I got myself into things that stories. I can tell you a lot of stories, but and then overseas. I mean, so there's a lot of things that happen in the U.S. over and overseas, and thing that a lot of people, I think, wrote about it, and this again is in the 70s. Tried to experience it and live it, and which is great. I think it's fantastic. But again, it what a person gets out of it for themselves is the key to the whole thing. But I
So,
was taught how to breathe a certain way. I will never, maybe I will. I don't say never, but I will teach that breathing, and I've met so many people from the hatha yoga and this yoga, and they're explaining to me about, and different sides and in and out and everything else. Well, I'll tell you, breathing and focus and concentration are locked into one. I'll explain that to people one day. I'll try and take them through the steps, through the levels, So, as the kids, and I used to watch the kids when I was younger, and one of the games they used to play was, everybody would have to go, and then they would hold their breath, and somebody would grab them from behind and squeeze them,
pass out, yeah,
and pass out. And I used to say, "You guys are nuts," and it's. And no disrespect to the Goju, Goju style system, and I went through a lot, and I do the Goju katas like Sanchin, Siunchin. I mean, all of the forms. I remember them. I mean, rerun it. The Mawashiyukis and the all that.
Yeah.
Okay, but the breathing, to me, it was, I don't think it was explained properly. So I used to watch the guys, and I used to, watch just used to watch, and I used to say, "Hey, man, you're gonna pass out. You have to stop." But stretching is another thing. I used to show these different stretching exercises. As a matter of fact, one of the students, they found old tapes where I was teaching self-defense to judo people. And this, I used to teach this back in the in the 60s and the 70s to the judo guys, because when I opened up in Brampton, that's all there was judo people. So teaching in Oakville, the judo guys, how to punch and how to lock and everything else, it was fun at that time. But stretching exercises, breathing to me is the key. Stretching is the key. Relaxation is the key. Most people, they when they go to sleep, they have a hard time sometimes sleeping. It's like right now, people call me and they say, I didn't get a good night's sleep. I can't focus on what I'm doing. So I say, well, try this, and it helps. I can give a little bit, but I've given a lot over the years. I really have. So, but
is there anything, if you could do it over again, is there anything you would do differently, or is there anything?
Yes, yeah, 100%. Yes, 100%. I would become a movie star. I would sign the contracts that they wanted me to. I would say yes to the books that they wanted me to write. I would say yes to a lot of things. It's like Billy and myself. Billy has done really tremendous for himself, and well deserved, because he's gone through a lot of things. But at the same time, we talk, and he keeps on saying, "You got to play the game. You got to play the game." And I go, "Billy, I'm tired of playing the game." As long as, to me, as long as there's benefit gotten off the students, so when somebody learns a kata, brilliant, as long as they work the kata and they get something out of it, really a good friend of mine, and George Chavello, George and myself, we've known each other for, and this goes back to even Clyde Gray. Clyde Gray married a young lady, Evelyn, and we went to school together as kids in grade school. So Clyde and George and the whole, but anyways, mechanics, to gauge, and they have this equipment out there right now that can do it. And we used to have it years back, where you used to wrap it around the bags, and we used to punch the bags, and it would measure how hard you hit the punch. Well, now they're starting to come out with different equipment like that, which I think is great. Technology is fantastic when it comes to that. And it measures not only how fast, how hard, and everything else that you're hitting a person. And I think that's a great way to go. But George and myself, we used to go down and they used to measure our forces and body weight. And to me, if see, your arms and your legs are just an extension of your body, nothing else. And if you use your body weight with your extension, man, oh man, and those are things that I don't say too much when I watch somebody, when they're teaching or doing something. And that's why I think this interview that you're doing here, I think it's fantastic, because everybody is a champion. Everybody is a winner. Everybody. I'm a legend. Where's your smile? There it is.
Smiling. I'm thinking this is the ego part that you're playing on me there.
Yeah, you know what? Oh, now those three things are into your, see, I got into the head of yours, right? Ego, greed, and anger,
Yep.
So again, I used to go into the tournaments and beforehand, and Billy and myself, I used to say this all the time, watch these guys. You'll know exactly what they're going to use because they're doing their egos. They're off to the side doing what, and then I would go up and say, well, even with Billy, I did that with him. I used to say, you know what? For a guy that walks like you, like a duck, you can't move that fast. So when we spar, you're going to have to do something. You need some energy, Bill. You need, in order to catch me, you got to do something else. I don't know what it is. You're either bow-legged or something. So I would get him pissed off. Now, the more that you get somebody angry at you, they don't think properly, so that anger takes over. So that
Yeah.
thought process is they're out and they just want to beat the crap out of you. Well, fine, great, let's move on, So, and the greed part of it, man, oh man, those trophies look so beautiful. Look at the size of them. Look at the height. Look at the weight. Man, oh man. And or, hey, do I get paid my money today? Greed.
Yeah.
So ego, greed, anger, but there's a fourth one to it. And I'm not telling anybody what it is just yet. These are things that people are asking me to send to them. And I don't know why, but here, let me show you this. Can you see this?
I had asked you about those before because you mentioned waltz. I had seen photos of this.
This here, and this is on Yonge Street, by the way, right on Yonge Street, Yonge and Dundas, and this is in the early 70s. But back then, and I'll show you another one where it things. But to me, it's not this picture that that I'm me doing this, because this comes from Yamashita, a fellow in the U.S. And I asked him. We worked, and really a brilliant exhibition person when it came to not only sword but nunchaka and a few other things. But anyways, he was doing a demo once, and I did those demos here in Toronto, and it had nothing to do with the martial arts. It just created excitement,
It's advertising,
advertising, marketing, But I remember him doing a demo at one of the, I think it was in Kansas or St. Louis, one of the two, and he did the chop. I'm pretty sure it was him, and I've got it. I've got the pictures too, but from him. But the guy started getting up, and he grabbed the guy's belly because the little split, it started opening. So you got to be very careful. And that's something that I should have brought up. Is I have something that I used. As a matter of fact, Caesar was interested in it, looking at it a couple years back. It's a sword that's got beautiful weight to it. And when I do this with it, all you can hear is a whoosh, 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 you know. But anyways, to me, a picture like this, you know what really tells me the story is I look at all the faces and I look at who, and you know what? I picked out 4 people in this picture that were students and that are still students today. Not with, they're still students today. They're still practicing martial arts from these photos here, you know, in the background. And then if you see the 2 Chinese fellows right down at the bottom, see these 2
I see,
right here?
Yep.
I got a picture with them and Jimmy Lore, you know, from Hagerman's. So, you know, so that to me is what's interesting. It's not what you see up front, it's what you see in the back. It's like this one here. I don't know if you ever saw this.
I've seen that one too, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so this one here, again, on this corner, you have the Olympic bowling alley. And over here, well, over here, this is, there's nothing in the back because that street, I think it's Edward Street, or that street goes all the way back to Bay, and this is at right on Yonge Street. And the club used to be at, it was called the Piccadilly Circus. Now, upstairs, there used to be a tap dancing guy that was in the martial arts. And I've got some pictures of the fellow, and I got to reach out to him because this fellow, and I'm going to throw an apology to him because he was doing tap dancing and he was doing martial arts at the same time. He was brilliant at both of them. I knocked him at that time, and I shouldn't have, and I have to apologize, you know. But back then I was knocking a lot of people, you know. But to me, it was, you know, ego, greed, anger. But anyways, getting back now, all these pictures, I, again, have pulled out 3 or 4 people that and here's the 2 Jimmy Lore students again. But then here's somebody, and here's these 2 that are still practicing up to date. And here's somebody that was, Mac Maya was one of the guys that was responsible for a lot of things in the martial arts and in the health industry. Mac Maya used to send wrestlers over to Japan from Toronto and for the Pride. And, you know, Mac Maya, again, was another person that was way ahead of his times. And that's where a lot of people like Canadian karate, gung fu, their history. So if anybody wants to know about history and where and how and what, you know what, I've got a lot of stuff that, yes, you could talk about it, but showing it are 2 different things, you know.
Do you have any plans to maybe create something that allows others to see it? Like, I know that you've been doing some work with one of your students, Vin.
Yeah.
To capture some things on video and that, but I mean, he's a photographer, correct? And,
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
essential for him
But
to,
you know what? Everybody has been saying to me, why don't you write a book? They've been saying that to me for 50 years. Well, there are books out there already. So mine's just going to be another one, another story to tell. See, to me, legacy, you know, everybody wants to leave a legacy. Maybe not. To me, once I'm gone, you know. So it's, all I know is that legacy, everybody, when you start writing a book, it means that you've done something really wrong. You just want to purge your soul and say, no, honestly, that's when I look at it and I go, holy, is that why you're doing it? You know, it's a lot of the guys that, and a good question. And I don't mean to this in a negative way. There's a fellow that was in charge of the NKA or NKJK right now, or in Canada. He found out that one of his instructors, or his instructor, was my student. He wrote a book. So, and this goes back to the Hamilton days and the Brampton days, because a lot of people were traveling to learn at that time. They'd go here, and the London days. So here he finds out that he's one of my students, or a student of a student. So he eliminates that completely and goes into a different style. And I asked him, I said, why? And he said, well, and again, this is where it brings in my style is better than your style. My organization is better than your organization. Everybody's trying to build an organization. So I asked him, he told me, I said, interesting. And then another person that wrote a book about distance, timing, everything else. And I go, something's not right here. So I look at the books, I look at the dates, I look at the times. It's all written by the same person or through the same person. Things that, again, that were taught. See, to me, I figured, listen, if somebody showed me something, I'm going to give that person credit of, yes, he did. This is where it came from. And this is what it is. The history of what I'm talking about is, I could talk here for hours and hours and hours and hours. I think basically what you're looking for right now is, what am I going to do with some of this stuff? I'm going to share it, yes. What did I give to the martial arts? I don't know. It's you talk to the other people, did I have anything to offer? I don't know, and again, it goes back to ego, greed, anger, so back in the 60s and the 70s, did I compete? Yes. Did I have students that competed? Yes. Were they very good? Yes. Did they win? Yes. Did I meet a lot of beautiful people along the way? Yes. Did I learn how to? Yes. So I'm not concerned about what their thing is, but ask me and I will tell you. And that's why I think it's really important. It's when you have a conversation, and like this here, it's I was asked, along with Billy, as soon as I guess the UFC first started, I got called and Billy got called. We talked back and forth. So they wanted me to do the announcement, and then they wanted Billy to do the announcement along with the commentating for the whole thing. Billy, I said, I'm not doing it. End. So he got the commentating part of it, and he was the very first person on the show. There was another person that was with him. Do you know who it was?
There were two. There was Brian Kilmeade, who's a commentator on Fox News right now, and there was football player
Jim Brown.
Jim Brown. Jim Brown.
Jim Brown, yeah.
Not James Brown. Jim Brown, yes.
James Brown was that.
Yeah, and a different guy. Yes.
Yeah, but yeah. So, anyways,
Brown. That's right.
And that's an interesting scenario there. It's and again, it comes to the business aspect of it and everything else, but. To me, I think everything goes into stages and into sequence. It's what does the audience want? Again, you're the actor, you give them what they want, and then they reward you, So it's like doing kata, and you got to do a presentation. I got into a real discussion with some of the guys, and I said, look, you guys are doing kata now, but why are you
doing the touching? The noise.
Why are you hitting yourself? Well, we're not. And I said, yeah, you're not, because nobody catches it because they're not using their eyes properly, And that's what I used to say to the guys before is, if you didn't compete in a tournament, don't referee, because your eyes can't get used to what is and what isn't, and you don't know what it feels like, and so But yeah, the competition, the tournaments. I mean, there's a lot of people that have come a long way. They've accomplished a hell of a lot in the martial arts, and I give them all kudos. You know what I mean? So, but do they want to know what the difference is between the 60s, 70s, and 80s? Times change, people change, rules change, rules change,
I think people are interested, well, speaking for myself as being one of them, but I think people are interested in the evolution of things, like where it started and how it got to where it is now. And speaking with people like you who've lived it from the 50s to now and continuing on and so on, it's really enlightening. Because, in your mind, it might be, well, this is just what we did and this is, it's nothing special or whatever else, but back to the whole, writing a book to purge your spirit or to leave a legacy or whatever. It's more than that. I think it's because people have people like me, speaking selfishly, we have an innate desire to understand why things are the way they are now, and the way that you do that is to get it from people as they're alive, or people as they put it in a book, and after long gone, they still sort of refer back to it. I've got the book of the Five Rings here, Musashi, his book.
Is he the guy that lived in a cave or something?
Yeah.
Is he the guy that you draw your sword, and as soon as you draw it, you better have blood on it? Is he the guy that came up with that?
I'm not sure if that's what he's famous for, but he's famous for the book, and he was a master swordsman and so on. But he died 500 years ago. But his words are still relevant today. And
tell me, and you know what? And I agree with you. Maybe.
But the point is that
yes, the book was taken. The book was taken and it was used on Wall Street years back, and it was used in business. All right. How did it get on Wall Street? How was it used on business? Somebody must have created it, something. See, and it's the whole thing is creative. That to me is what's really interesting about this whole thing, is what's going to happen next, what's going to be created next. And I've talked to a lot of people that have gone to Okinawa, lived there, breathed there, ate there, and I hear one side, then I hear another side, then I hear, it's I think everybody is looking for something. And if you can find what you're looking for, be happy. Be happy, So if you're looking to see if you can kick as hard as you want to, be the best at whatever you can, be happy. To me, if it's like going into a tournament or a business or whatever else, and again, my fault, because I am not really good at technology. I didn't keep up. Shame on me. All right. I don't have people that can help me with books, or I have the I have all the tools, but it's I don't know where to plug them into and how to, you know what I mean? So it's and everybody works together really well, as long as everybody's on the same page looking for the same goal, And if you're out of that mix a little bit, and if you want to go your direction, you don't fit into the mold somehow, you know what I mean? So next, next, because everybody really wants to move forward. So it's always been my point of view is when you're going into tournaments, or when you're going into to do something, you're you want to be 3 steps ahead. It's like playing chess at high speed. And that's what it is. He's coming in this way, I'm going to do this. He's coming in this way, I'm going to do that. And same as in business, you got to be 3 steps ahead of the whole thing, So right now, yes, this COVID thing is happening. Here, how does that? Do I look a little more studious with these on, or what? you know, right now we're COVID. Everybody's inside. Is that adding stress to everybody because they're so close together? It's like kids. Your son is how old? 19, right? And he's at home, or is he in school?
He's doing school from home now, yes.
Okay. So, and maybe I'm wrong, but all kids, not all kids, but most kids, they reach a point where they don't want to talk to you anymore. They want to get the hell out. They're tired of listening to what you've had to say. They just, and it's always going to be the same. It's that evolution, people are just, you know what? I think what you got to do is who's got the better mousetrap? That's what you go for, That's the way you go. So, will or can I show you how to break a brick? I can do that in 5 minutes. You want to break 5 boards? I can show you that in 2 minutes, depending on how you want to break the boards, So, you can bake them, you can cut them, or you can use real boards, but it's all, again, those are tools to build up confidence for, I remember some of the, and again, this is where egos come in, top Japanese guys coming in, and somebody hands them a board, and the true story, and this guy here was the top from Okinawa, from the organization. So here's the board. It's about that thick, and the grains are running the wrong way, So they hand him the board and they say, "Go ahead and break it." Man, oh man, I thought for sure he would break his hand, which he did. But from his hand, he went into his feet. He broke the board, simple. But determination, move forward, and all that. To me, certain things are possible, certain things are impossible, But if you use what you have and the gift that you have, and everybody has it, and we only use a certain percentage of it, and that's the brain, the mind, the focus, and everything else. If you can learn how to do that, I've heard, and you've probably heard of these stories where women, men, people have picked up cars to save their child out of a car. Here's something that's weighing 1,000 pounds, and here's a woman that's 120 pounds, picks it up, moves it out of the way. Well, how does she do it? Something must have kicked in, right? So, there is something there, and as long as you can find it, So breathing is really important. Focus is really important. Training is really important. I work out every day. I train every day. I try and do what I need to do in order to function. Have I gone through different things medically? Yes. I died a year and a half ago. I went into cardiac arrest. They had me on, I went in for stents. A lot of people don't know some of the things that I've gone through, the physical aspect of it. But yeah, so I came back from death. I'm here again. So living legends are still here. But it took me a while to get back into it. Because I did that demonstration with Billy for charity last year, 2019, raised a lot of money for the Wish Foundation. And I did a 3-round demonstration with Billy, but I was really, really in shape to go 10 rounds if I needed to. And I was in shape enough that if I had to knock somebody out, I would have, And I only would have done that to a couple of people that I reminisce in my head, saying, I picture the faces, but those negative things you can't bring up, because right now negativity doesn't work, so you just got to be positive and just move forward. But I think again, there's a lot of, and it really hurts me to see a lot of the clubs close, and these people, especially the kids, they got to find a different avenue to do something. And there are different avenues, but the art, the sport of the martial arts, that's something that they chose to do. Other than they still play hockey and baseball and the other sports, but they've chosen to do this. And I do believe that it's very beneficial for people in many ways. So I do hope that again, if there's at home, I hope they practice. Like, do you practice at home? Do you do katas and stuff?
I do
Yeah.
actually, and yeah, using this format,
Yeah.
I still train with other people.
Oh yeah,
So
beautiful.
it's not
Invite me.
obviously.
Invite
What's
me.
that?
Invite me.
Invite you.
Yeah. No, see, don't worry about egos, because if I learn something off of you guys, and you know what? Yes, we have talked, and every time that we talk, I learn something more and more from you. Every time, So you asked me a question, I gave you an answer. You asked me, and things are rolling in your head and everything else. So, um, and I learn. I really do learn. So, it's in this format, we don't have to really worry about anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's all words. There's no physical aspect of it,
It's no
right?
physical, no.
Right, right. So it's all
Well, there's
words.
the ego component, but that's a whole other thing.
you know,
Egos can be bruised.
no, you know what? Hey, listen, if I'm on there and I'm talking to somebody and you say to me, you know what, your kick sucks. And I go, okay. Maybe 40, 50 years ago, I'd say, what do you mean sucks? Tell me. Blah, 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 but
Yeah.
I think, okay, it sucks. Well, how come? Tell me why. What? Show me. Simple.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's your opinion, and I agree with you, but and again, it goes back to the kicks and the punches, what we were talking earlier. How's your time? I'm looking at the.
Actually, I've got a meeting at 4 o'clock, so
Okay, we got 7 minutes.
we'll need to wrap this up a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, look, all of a sudden my thing just started going
Yeah,
crazy.
you're a popular guy. I keep hearing your phone.
No, you know what it is? I think people are reading our my mind and your mind or things. But you know what? If there's any question, and I do have all the information, I do have the dates, the times, but you can spin things 5 different ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's an article that I think I sent you from 1978, but
Yep.
you got to remember most books and everything, that's when the writing and the changes were in that time period, 78 on, so from that period, from 77, 76 and below, that's where all the information is here, so that will tell you what direction, and but I would suggest is, and I'd love to get on, I'd love to work out with you guys, I'd love to pick up as much as I can. One of the guys that I worked out with a couple weeks ago, we're working on something, and then all of a sudden um, he got my back and he started taking me down, and I said, how the hell did he do that? Because it never happens in the way that he did it. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
stop, stop, stop. Let's do this again. Blah, blah, blah. We're moving around and boom, and I said, do that again. I want to see it. I have to. Why is this happening? So
Yeah.
to me, I think that's great. So I think it's fantastic because you eliminate certain things. And, to me, again, it's, um, if you can do 10 push-ups, why do 50 to get the same benefit?
Yeah, why make it harder when you don't have to? Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what all kids are looking for nowadays anyways, right? Anyways, okay. But I want to say thank you. And again, if anybody wants to ask, and I think that's what's been happening is you're the first person that really asked for something like this, some of the other guys I hear they're doing all kinds of things. And are they afraid that I might say something that I shouldn't?
I don't know. Maybe they're afraid to approach you. Who knows?
No,
I don't know any better.
No. You know what? It's listen, I had to me, it's I've always looked at the person, never what he wore, never what he drove, never what he had. And same thing as I've always looked at the person, not the belt, So that's the way that I've always looked at people, determined people is, with your, I think once people get to know you, once people get to know Walt and some of the other, behind all the things, you got some beautiful people there, because there's no ego, there's no greed, and there's no anger.
A lot of questions. Plenty of questions.
Hey, anytime.
All right. Well, I really appreciate your time, Sensei, and I'd love to have you back again. I like your idea of maybe having you and maybe a couple of other people on at the same.
You know what? There's that history, and especially when it comes to kata, because it's changed so much that I can see. Not only from presentation, to me, kata, if you start here, you finish here. But I see so many, and kata is kata, do it in a cat stance, do it in a back stance, do it in a kiba, shiko, whatever. It's all exercise, which is great. But talk to, if you can get Kentala, it's the questions. And you know what? I can ask questions if you want to invite me with some other people. And I will not be rude. I will not be condescending. I will not be, thing. But I'll, there's ways of asking questions where you can get answers, the right way, I think,
Sure. Oh, definitely there is. Yeah, definitely.
And there is so much in all the martial arts. And I mean all of them, from the Korean to the Japanese to the Okinawan to the Chinese, there's all benefits in every single one of them. So,
right. Well, I look forward to exploring that further at some point. So again, thank you very much for your time today.
Okay.